Good morning, everybody. Comic books and graphic novels, or as Professor Cuskin would say, welcome, heroes. We're really excited to have you all here as we do our second attempt at a live Hangout assignment. For those of you that watched last night, it was a fun experiment as we were trying to, and of course last night, Colorado time, as we were trying to figure out the technology. We think we have it dialed here today. We've been talking for about 20 minutes now with a couple of students from the class. But let me take a minute and introduce ourselves. My name is Corey Pavicic. I work at the University of Colorado as an academic technology designer. So I help design and create the MOOCs that you might be taking on Coursera from the University of Colorado. I'm here to kind of keep the trains running on time, make sure that everything continues to work throughout the Hangout. We also have Allison Hargett, who I know, but I refer to as Allison and not Hargett. She's actually our subject matter expert here today. She's a graduate student in English. She's very active in the forums, and I'm going to let her say a few things. So, Allison?
Hi. I'm Allison Hargett. As Corey said, I'm one of the two graduate TAs for the course this term, and if I'm doing my job right, you've seen me posting on the forums, hopefully, and giving you guys some feedback on your rough drafts for Essay 1, which is what we're going to be talking about today.
Excellent.
Yeah. Ans and John, do you guys want to introduce yourself?
Who should go first? Ladies first. Netherlands first.
Okay, shall I go first?
Yes.
Okay. I'm Ans Vianen. I'm from the Netherlands. I'm living near Amsterdam. I'm a professional artist. I studied interactive design at the Rootveld Academy, and I studied at the Academy for Art in Amsterdam also. My goal for this course is that I want to discover how comics are working. I want to make my own comics, and I still make movies. And I really want to thank Professor Cuskin team for the splendid material they delivered us. I'm really happy with that. So that's my that are my words.
Excellent. Thank you very much. John,
Okay,
tell us a little bit about, and also, well, actually, Ants, did you say where you were located?
I'm located.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Excellent. John.
Okay, my name is John O'Connor. I live in Boston, Massachusetts. I'm not really a comic person. I think the last time I read a comic was 35 years ago. When I was a kid, I did like Judge Dredd, and also liked. I grew up in Northern Ireland, so I used to read English comics, and they used to still have comics about the war. I thought they were very interesting. My first experience with a MOOC was last year, when I was fortunate enough to stumble across Professor Filray's course on modern and American contemporary poetry. And I'm not a poetry person, but there's something about that course that really grabbed my imagination. I like the way he showed how words don't just describe things, but actually have sort of a life of their own. They can do things. And that's the only course I've ever completed on Coursera. I've sampled the courses since then. So just browsing through the catalog, I came across this course in comics, and I was very impressed by Professor Cuskin's demonstration of how to do a synthesis of a text, because that's something I've struggled with for a long time. I never really got English, and I've taken other classes where you're supposed to synthesize the details. It just didn't stick, but there's something about comics, I think, that has allowed me to develop that skill. So I'm more interested in the humanity aspect of this course and the English, getting better at writing and thinking than the comics. So I am enjoying the comics as well, I might start reading comics again as well. Okay, your face is frozen. Can you hear me? I can hear you laughing. Hello?
What's the problem now?
What's the problem now?
I didn't heard the last sentence.
I feel like this is like the Eurovision Song Contest. You know, come in, Boulder, Colorado.
Oh, yeah.
Are you hearing us now?
Yeah, I'm hearing you now.
Yes.
Now much
Excellent. We're turning up the sound again. You are not, of course, seeing Allison, or you're not seeing me. You're seeing Allison.
Hi. Hopefully my face didn't freeze in a funny position.
Although now we're not hearing them. Hold it down.
You got it. You got it.
Okay, can we hear you guys again?
Yeah. This is John from Boston.
Excellent.
Awesome.
We can hear you.
I'm Fiona from Amsterdam.
All right. So I think what you were saying, John, is really important. Comics are a great medium to kind of learn how to synthesize those details, which is the main point of the first essay, which is what we're going to be talking about today. Now, I don't have the Google Drive on your computer.
Right.
Yeah.
So we're going to see if I can do a screen share from here, and if those will show up. Here.
Oh, I can see you now.
Oh, you can.
I can. Yeah. Oh. Whoa.
Yeah, that was awesome. Are you starting with ants?
I think I'm going to. Yeah, we can start with Anne's work if you don't mind.
All right. We'll come over here and
Switch
run
back?
it.
Okay. All right. I'm just assuming that.
Everyone can see the paper as it looks on your screen.
Okay. All right. So is it AMS or ONS? It's ONS. We are going to start with your paper, which I have pulled up here, and these are the same comments that Elisa gave you back on your work on the discussion forum, so hopefully you've had a chance to take a look at those. Everybody can still hear me, right?
Yep.
Yes? Okay, good. All right. So, Ons, do you want to kind of summarize for us what your argument is here for everybody watching who's not going to get to read your entire paper?
Actually, first I have to say that this is an older version of the paper I sent in, because Alyssa, she also asked me to introduce what is a cliché. The whole paper is about clichés. And that I actually put in the first alinea I dropped in, and now I see it's not the right paper, but doesn't matter. That I started with to say what's the paper about, and my first thing what I remarked was that there was a lot of clichés in it, and is it really necessary? And what's left when the clichés are gone away? That was actually my interesting point.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry about not having your current paper. I didn't see a more current version, but that might have gotten kind of lost in translation. So the one edit that you did make is a really important one. So your thesis here is about cliché, so it's always really important to define the terms that you're going to use in a thesis. You know, your main terms. So if you assume that your reader understands what a cliché is and how you're using the word cliché, in your essay, then it might not clearly communicate what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
So you've added in the definition of cliche and kind of how you're using it here. The other really interesting thing I found about your paper is, I don't know, can you guys see when I highlight stuff?
Are you guys seeing her? There we go. Yes.
Yeah? Okay. Is this final question for your first paragraph here, for your introduction. So this question, like, it kind of hints at your thesis for your essay here. And what's really important is when you pose these sorts of questions, you answer them later in your paper, and the answer to this question is going to be a really strong thesis. And I don't know if you've made any other edits to this since we've returned this feedback, but answering this question, does it still work if a comic writer uses cliches to convey his story? You know, is it possible to convey a story through cliches? Is a really, really strong thesis, in my opinion. So, do you want to take a stab at answering that question?
Can I say something about what you said?
Oh yeah, go ahead, definitely.
Because I also try to make the essay open for the readers, that they can think by their own from, yeah, do I agree or do I not agree with what I'm writing? So that's why I also have used some question marks in it. And later on, I'm giving my opinion about that. That's what I've tried. I don't know whether it works, but.
That's a really interesting concept, and what sometimes functions in that way is if you maybe later in your essay kind of address some counterpoints. So maybe you're arguing it does work to use cliches or it doesn't work to use cliches, and later in your paper you can kind of address the opposite viewpoint, like why would someone argue against you and how would you address those claims, and that might be more effective than posing open-ended questions, just because the point of this essay is to kind of form an opinion about this page, but then to support that opinion through your paper and stand behind your ideas. You definitely don't want it to seem as though you're unsure about your thesis, and sometimes leaving questions in can have that effect. My computer has frozen.
Can you still hear us?
Yeah, I heard a kind of piano playing, something like that. But I haven't heard. I haven't heard all the things. But what was the last question?
I was just saying it's important. Like maybe a more effective way to address this sort of leaving questions open-ended would be to just account for like opposing viewpoints. So maybe if you argue that a comic writer does use cliches to convey his story and that is an effective device, you can maybe later account for, like, how would people say that, how would people argue against you and how would you address those claims. And that might be more effective than leaving open-ended questions, because it's important to not just express an opinion but be able to support it and stand behind your claims. I don't know if this is going through, but my cursor is definitely frozen.
Are you guys hearing?
Yeah.
Okay.
Was that a no or a yes?
That was a yes.
Okay.
We got nods, yes.
Yes.
Good. But I am not able to actually use my computer right now.
Yes. Set up later. Okay. I wonder if I can. So yeah, nothing's happening there.
Nope.
But you guys can see me again, right?
I can see the page. I just see the essay and essay.
Excellent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, John, do you have any? I don't know if you've been able to be part of this conversation. Thoughts on what you're seeing here? You talked a lot about your interest in this course is in writing.
So you want to give some feedback on Anne's essay, what I see in front of me?
Yeah, and just the conversation that we're having here. Like advice you might give, having been thinking about writing a lot yourself.
Yeah, well, I have a great statement about answering questions. I have a tendency as well of just raising questions, and I think that's kind of a cop out. I think the reader wants an answer. I think it sets a rather timid tone to ask like a rhetorical question. I think it's important to answer the question. It gives it more confidence. Your persona, the professor talked about developing a persona, and I think asking questions without providing an answer creates one type of persona, whereas if you ask a question and answer it, you create a different type of persona.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. And I know one of the comments I gave on a lot of rough drafts was about projecting a sort of confidence with your writing. We saw a lot of people using terms like maybe or seems, which is sort of a qualifier that makes you sound not 100% committed to your argument or confident about it. And sometimes posing questions and then not answering them can have a similar effect. And we really want to have this kind of, even if it's fake, a confidence in your argument.
One of the things I noticed in reading a lot of the essays is that they tended to be a summary of the story, or they use the page as maybe a jumping off point to discuss something else. And I think it's helpful to like focus on what's actually going on the comic page, focus on those details, and sort of tie them together rather than using them as a jumping off point, which I tend to do to some abstract interpretation which no one else understands.
Right, and that's one of the reasons we chose you and Ons for this example, because both of you did a really good job of kind of identifying the important details on the page and giving them a little bit of synthesis, which is another really important point. If you're summarizing, you're not really adding anything to the page. Yeah.
But there is a danger, I think, of focusing too much on the details, which I had a tendency to do, and you get lost in the details, and there's details on details. And again, Professor Kuskin mentioned that your essay can become additive. We just add one detail, one observation on top of the other, and eventually the essay falls over. And what I've discovered is that the professor's right. There is this organic back and forwards between the thesis and your various paragraphs, and between the introduction and the conclusion. It all sort of blends in together and works backwards and forwards. I feel as though I'm like a gardener, like nourishing, encouraging a plant to grow.
That's a really good metaphor for writing an essay, in my opinion.
Before I thought I was like a mechanic constructing or adding things together, but it's more organic. It's not a mechanical process.
It really is, and one of the things. Oh, we have a surprise guest.
Not really a surprise.
Is this on?
It is on. You're live right now.
Hello. Hi.
Hi.
Who's there? This is William. Who am I talking to?
Hello.
Hi. And who's over here?
John from Boston.
John. Great. I think I've read both your essays.
Did you get my most recent one, the one I sent like late last night?
No, I didn't have a chance to forward that on yet. I'm sorry.
That's okay. So I was going to suggest, I mean, maybe we do a close, when you finish with Anne, do a close reading maybe of both comics, where we can work on the details, show people what the details are and what the story is.
Yeah, that's definitely something we could do if we have time today, to go over one of the pages and talk about how to synthesize those details. We were in the middle of talking about identifying important details of the page and speaking with confidence in your essay. And we are on, I think you can see we're on On's paper here.
Is the cursor on?
Nope.
Oh, okay, we're frozen.
Yeah. I
was trying to switch to your camera, but...
I can do touch screen.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, that's okay.
The minute I walk in, there's problems. That's what happens.
There we go.
Okay. Hi.
Tim.
All right. So,
we would be moving on. Do you want to talk to John's essay for a little while now?
Sure. Yeah. Should I
Okay.
go back to the screen sharing for that?
So, John, while we're switching over, could you tell us a little bit about your essay and the argument you're making?
Oh, sure. Well, first of all, I've probably written a very completely different essay than the one I submitted to you guys. Basically, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. Basically, Superman is it's an action comic about an action hero, and it's about the conflict between action and inaction. Superman represents action. The Robed Man is his enemy, and he represents inaction. But the story of this comic doesn't just take place on the page. It's not just about Superman overcoming his enemy, the Robed Man. It's about Superman representing the active imagination and the Robed Man representing the inactive imagination. And as you read this page, you can discover that the story moves. There are actually at least three different stories of Superman. There's Superman, the hero, saving the innocent life. And then there's the story of Superman who appears to be a hero, but he could be a villain that's kind of ambiguous. We're not sure if he's the good guy or the bad guy. And then there's the story of Superman who starts as a hero and descends by using violence into becoming, an object of terror. So the conclusion is, if the reader has an active imagination, they can discover these various stories. But if they're not moved by Superman's story, just as the Robed Man was not moved by the story, then you just get one story. I don't know if you heard that.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I have pulled up here the draft that you sent us last night.
Yeah.
And one thing that I think you, as I said before, I think you did a really great job of identifying specific details and analyzing them. I know you said before you felt like you sometimes got bogged down by the details, that they were overwhelming or that you were reading too far into them. But I think in this essay, you did a really great job of basing your ideas on concrete facts from the page. The one, scroll to the top, okay, there, yes.
Could you scroll to the introduction, just so I can look at that while you're talking?
The introduction for his paper?
Yeah.
That's where
Look over her shoulder. There's a lag for the moment.
Oh.
Okay.
We're
I'm
lagging.
sorry. Yeah.
Okay.
Go right ahead.
Right, so really good details, really great idea. The one thing that we wanted to talk about here is about organization. So I know you have these three different ideas, and you have them organized here in kind of three different sections, and then each section you go over each tier of the page. And like I said, your analysis and synthesis in each of these sections is so good, but the way you've divided it up isn't necessarily organic, so it feels kind of imposed. So you've got these three different arguments that you're trying to make, and in each one you have the details for the page from that argument. But what might be really effective here is if you were to organize it based on concept as opposed to based on panel. So when you go through and you're talking about the three different stories of Superman, here's Superman as a hero, and the different obstacles, instead of organizing it based on the order that those panels occur on the page, it might be more conducive for your argument to organize them kind of organically from one idea to the next. So starting with one particular detail, explaining how that detail functions on the page, and then letting that kind of lead naturally into your next idea, and expanding on those, building up to a conclusion in which you expand on your original thesis.
Yeah, I would agree with exactly what Allison is saying there. John, your paragraphs there, you can see if you're just looking at this page, it goes first, second, third, and then second story. It's a real lockstep, and instead of persuading me about your overall insight, it's married to a lockstep based on a reading of the page. So So what I want to say here is that when you were just telling us about the paper a few minutes ago before Allison was speaking, you were so engrossing. I was pulled in. I was saying, holy moly, this is a great reading.
Yeah.
When I look at this paper, I don't feel engrossed. I feel like your structure is standing between you and I.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I guess that's one of the things I'm a little bit afraid to let go of the details. So that's why I'm very concerned about organizing them. 1, 2, 3, 4.
So I think that is the next phase, and I was glad you said that because could we go back to the beginning of John's introduction?
Uh-huh.
So to me, when I read this introduction is also a little more stodgy than when you were speaking to me. And the way I see that is that when you were speaking to me, you I don't know, you moved to the imagination. You got further into the notion of the reader's choice and the levels at which the story worked. And you were going to talk to me. You were talking to me about ideas. When I look at this, it's almost like the sentences, they're a little bit abrupt. And it doesn't get to the same exciting point that you got to. So I want to bring us back to what you said. You said you were a little bit afraid to let your ideas go. And I've been thinking a lot about fear. And I think that fear is such a powerful, disincentive or obstacle. And of course, we're reasonable to be afraid. Fear, in many ways, is what keeps us alive, right? We're afraid of doing something so we don't go too far and kill ourselves or make a fool of ourselves. But the fact of the matter is we need to control our fear and allow our voice to come forth. So what I would assign for you is to do two things. I would spend a little more time thinking about what you're trying to communicate. What is the big payoff? I mean, let's face it. This is a chance for you to communicate to whoever reads your paper, and we know that 4 people have to read your paper, but Allison and I will certainly read it again. So there's 6. But here's a chance for you to communicate an abstract idea to 6 people. So spend a little more time thinking about what it is you want to say, and I would encourage you to pull your new idea, pull time back into it. What you were saying in an earlier draft about time was so interesting. So interesting. Pull time back into this. Time relates to these layers, to the different kinds of Superman. So my first idea is just whatever you do. If you're standing in the shower, you go for a jog, you're making dinner, just think about what you want to say. Then I want you to print out your essay and get a pen and read it out loud and ask yourself with every sentence, does this sentence capture who I am, who I want to be? Put away the fear and just say, the bravest, boldest Super John, does this capture who I am? So those are my 2 assignments for you.
Yes.
And I have your previous draft here if we want to take a look at it. One of the differences I also saw is it kind of flowed a little more organically as well. And that does go back to what you were saying earlier about how you haven't really participated in the humanities too much up until this point. And it's a different kind of writing. It's a new way to learn how to write an English essay versus a case study or a scientific. I can't even think of science words.
No.
Would you describe the voice of this as like a scientific sort of a demonstration rather than a personal voice?
From your final draft, and even the second one that you gave me that was also about action, that I returned some comments to you on. Yeah, I feel like you're more kind of saying these are the facts and I'm demonstrating them to you as opposed to composing this sort of like flowing organic argument, which is really the aim for a paper in the humanities.
So I'm going to be a little blunt here. I think that the drafts I read, you were halting. And I don't think halting works in any genre. I think when I was listening to you speak, you were fluid and thoughtful. And fluid and thoughtful works in any discipline. You do have to... Fluid and thoughtful works in any discipline. I charge you to work on your voice.
Okay.
I think it will improve all your writing. And reading it out loud with a pen and just working the words over in your mouth and listening to them as you speak will help all your writing.
Yeah. I would definitely agree with that. Other than that, I think you have a really strong argument here. A lot of really interesting details, which I think is your strength. Identifying those details and forming an argument about them. Should I pull up the previous draft? Do you want to take a look at that, or?
If you want, I'm sorry. I tend to kibitz and then I take over, so I don't mean to. As you were.
So we could take a look at John's previous draft. We could go back to On's paper, and John had mentioned maybe trying to take a look at one of the pages, going through and discussing the details on those.
Do you have a page that we could look at?
I have the pages from the assignment that I could pull up. Yeah.
And of course, your computer doesn't want to pull those things up right now. Hans, how are you doing out there? It's a big ocean between us and you.
It is.
So we're not getting anything from you right now, Hans. I'm not sure what's happening. We have Allison over here who is pulling up the pages from the assignment, which will be here shortly.
And it looks like John's frozen.
Uh-oh.
No, John's still there.
Okay. So because your paper's on the Superman page, that might be an interesting place to start. Yeah. Is this working?
And I'm thinking we could do maybe 5 more minutes here, and then we should start looking at wrapping up our hangout here this morning.
So, John, do you maybe want to talk us through how you picked out important details on the page?
Oh, sure. Well, what I did was I noticed that I noticed the shadows that stuck in my mind. I noticed the piece of wood flying in the middle panel. I noticed the unusual position of Superman's legs in the various panels. And I noticed he seemed to be moving. He's either moving or not moving. And when he's not moving, he's with the Road Man. So I figured this is an action comic. It's something to do about action and inaction, and the shadows maybe foreshadow his downfall from a good hero to a bad hero. The broken piece of wood representing something odd about Superman breaking the door, representing a wrong use of force. But the door is intact. You can still see the hinges. So maybe it's just not a bad use of force. He's doing the bare minimum. The various opposites in the story. It begins with him outside and carrying someone. It ends with him underneath carrying someone. There's a reversal there.
Yeah.
The duplications. The word "help" is duplicated. In a way, I see too many details, and I guess I just need to sort of step back and say, what do I focus on?
What I think is really great about the way you identify details here is that you're not just focusing on dialogue or expressions or the really obvious details. You're taking a look at lighting, which I think is really great. A lot of people looked at color, which is great, and the grid, kind of the elements of the page that aren't the most obvious elements, which really makes your synthesis of these details deeper and more meaningful.
So what I was thinking here, what I was really enjoying about what you were saying just then, was that you weren't really moving through the page in a linear fashion.
No.
You were picking out details and returning back around details. And it struck me that your title, isn't your title, I forget what your title is, but it's Action Comics About Action, Showing Action. Your title is not linear either. Your title is recursive. It's returning back on things. So one thing that Allison was pointing out is that your structure remains very linear, first, second, third. But your thinking is not linear at all. And one of the interesting things, if I can reach here, is that your argument has to do with the reader's imagination and the reader's ability to return, not linear, but return on different levels of the story. And then I think that connects to your notion of time, because in the earlier draft, time appears linear, but you're arguing that there are different modes of time. So the page and time both appear chronological and linear, but your argument in each case is that there's processes of return. So I would say work on that.
Okay.
Work on that.
Yeah, I definitely agree, and it's great the way you phrase that. Your thought process is already in that sort of organic flow of an essay, and you're kind of imposing structure over it.
Yes.
So, yeah, I mean, I guess taking a step back is good advice. Take a step back to your thought process.
Yeah, allow yourself, don't be afraid of how smart you are. That's my advice.
So imposing, I should be wary about imposing a structure. I should just let it somehow grow. I should maybe prune my ideas rather than chop them up into little pieces and stick them together.
That's a nice metaphor.
Definitely. All right. So are we...
I think we should wrap this up here this morning.
Okay.
You'd like to take us out, or...
I'm just delighted to meet you both. It's so exciting. Last night we did the Google Hangout, and it didn't really work, though. Afterwards, I was able to meet Eric Sherwood a little bit, and that was quite fun. So it was great to speak to you both, and onwards.
Onwards.
Excellent. Thank you all. We look forward to reading essays. We hope you look forward to reading each other's essays. And whatever time of day it is, have a great rest of the day wherever you are.
Okay, bye.
Bye.